I'd like to call the study session for September 10th, 2012 to order. May I get roll call, please?
Yes, Mrs. Kraut? Here. Mr. Thied?
Present.
Mrs. Funderburg?
Here.
Mrs. Buckley? Here. Mrs. Beard's present. Mr. McLaughlin?
Here.
Mr. Kudrick?
Present. Will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the next item of business we have is an approval of the agenda. And a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move for the approval of the agenda with the stipulation item 6 is discussion only.
I need a second.
Support.
Okay, Cheryl? Okay. Supported by Mr. McLaughlin, motion by Mr. McLaughlin, supported by Ms. Buckley. Are any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Oh, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Is there any timelines on any of this that we need to take action on tonight?
No.
Can this wait to?
These are all discussion items
Okay.
tonight.
then
The re-
that's all I wanna know.
yeah,
It's just, it's the wording
the
of it.
reason I brought it up is because it's not posted as an action meeting, it's posted as a study session.
Okay, I'm good.
Any other questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed, 7-0. Next item that we have is a presentation from Camp Learn A Lot.
We have Dr. Daniels here, who was Vice President in charge of Camp Learn A Lot this summer, as one of her
Not
many
only-
responsibilities this
Not only
year.
the president, but the CEO, right?
Good evening, everyone.
I don't know if it's on.
I don't think it's on.
It's not on.
There it goes.
On now?
Much better.
Good evening, everyone. At our last meeting, we had board members who were able to share that they had had an opportunity to stop by our camp, and I shared that we would have just a little small presentation. And this is just a little bit of what we did during the summer. One of the things that we did was we moved our program closer to the start of school. So, usually summer schools are right after school gets out and you keep going. Well, we moved it over and we started it in July. One of the goals was to help kids get back where they were closer to getting ready to get going when the school year started. And we have the new name of our summer program is Camp Learn A Lot. So expect to see more of Camp Learn A Lot. Our theme this summer was Igniting Learning and Go for the Gold. It coincided with the Olympics, so it gave us a perfect opportunity to have a theme, but we also focused on cooperation and teamwork, striving to be your best, give it everything that you've got to succeed, and then learning to appreciate others. Our goals included, we wanted to have a fun experience for our students. We also wanted to give an opportunity to do some college and career readiness. We had many of our high school students who participated as assistant counselors, and then we wanted to be able to jumpstart the new year. We also worked on organizational skills using thinking maps, and I'm going to come back with you at another meeting and talk about what thinking maps are. But it's really a process of how you can organize whatever you do. And it's something that can be used in every content area, every subject area, every grade level, and you actually use them all the time and you don't really realize that you're using it. We took a look at academic vocabulary. We wanted to work on comprehension by having students read, because one of the best ways to get students to learn how to read and comprehend what they're reading is to actually do it. We also looked at the foundational math skills that we know many of our students are lacking, basic multiplication facts, but then we also looked at fractions and measurement. We had medal winners coming and going this summer, and some of our big gold winners were our enrollment and the attendance. Our attendance stayed high until we got to the very end, and we know that families started going on some vacations and some different things took place because we did survey to find out, what was causing the fall off. Also, academic improvement. Our students increased their vocabulary, their math facts, their ability to just, have them just where they had them down cold, and their understanding of fractions and measurement. And then the best thing, we got the best all-around gold, and that everybody just had a great time. We surveyed parents, and these are some of the comments that we heard. At first, my child didn't want to come. I had a parent who said her son hated her, that she was making him come. And after the first day, he did not miss a single day. And we have these actually written out on some of our evaluations. My child will be ready to start in September. Busing made it possible for my children to come. Some of the things we asked, if we don't have transportation, will you be able to participate? And we had many parents who said no. So they were really pleased that we could provide the transportation. Teachers were great, and then we had everyone saying, please have it next summer. So we're going to do all that we can do to make that happen. At Camp Learn a Lot, we learned a lot. If you were ever there when we were singing our theme song, the Eye of the Tiger got new words to it, and so that's what we found. But the ways that we learned a lot were varied. We learned a lot by studying hard. We had small groups, we had individual instruction going on, we had teacher tutoring, we had high school student to child tutoring, and we had peer tutoring. And the thing in the middle where you see fractions, that's one of the thinking maps. And that one happens to be one that you use to brainstorm, just to get ideas. What do you know about something? Accessing prior knowledge. Another way that we learned a lot was reading. We read around the world. Every page represented 1 mile. And the map that you see on the right was a big wall-sized map, and if you see the red line, we tracked how many miles we were going, where they checked in with how many books or how many pages everyone had read. And I want you to know we got around the world almost 2 times. That's how many pages. Yeah, we were really pleased with that. And I really think we really might have made it around because we took a few detours going to the different places where the Olympics had been recently. So if we just taken a straight line, I'm sure we would have made it all the way. Another way that we learned was by just having a lot of fun. Kids went canoeing, they went swimming, we had water Olympics, they had s'mores. We just had a real good time. We want to give special thanks to a number of people. Our chief counselor was Mrs. McAnally. Our program planners were the elementary principals. They started planning for this program back in the early spring, so they helped lay that groundwork. Then Mrs. McGlynn, Mrs. Wadsworth, and Mrs. Whalen were the planners when the rubber started to hit the road. Our teacher counselors, our team tutors were all just stellar, and we thank them. Then we had just vast support. I mean, from transportation to food service, maintenance, all of you, all of the central office here, all gave great support. Our parents were phenomenal. We had parent activities. They came out. They made sure that our kids got there. We had some students who did not take the bus, and parents brought them every day. So we were pleased about that. But then most of all, we want to thank our great students. And we want to thank everyone. Now, I want you guys to look at this picture. This is the Olympic rings. So we wanted to do a great big thank you to all of you. And I don't want anybody to pass this around. But we have started planning for next year, and we're working on our theme. So we're real pleased, and we're excited, and we're looking forward to the new year. And again, we'd like to thank you all for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Great presentation and a great camp. It's really a pleasure to see all those happy faces. this summer.
Does anybody got any questions?
I was wondering, Ms. Daniels, did you guys happen to take any video?
Yes, we do. And as a matter of fact, Jesse McAnally put together a really nice synopsis. And I can get you the link to that so that you can see it. And then we have a lot of clips, video clips too, that we did during the summer, so.
I know we were talking after the last board meeting with Mr. Weiss about putting something together to submit it to like the MASB conference and stuff like that and try to get an award. So if they can put something together like that, that would be awesome.
Will do.
Anybody else have any questions? Danielle, Sandy, Cheryl?
Promoting it, make sure we get some stuff in the little paper.
Rob?
I'm good.
I can just tell you, Ms. Daniels, I had to work with some of the student advisors you had, and for some of the young students that are out there, they sure had a lot of enthusiasm for working with the younger students. They really enjoyed it. They seemed like there was a few of them that I know that were very eager in getting there and did everything they could to get there on time, so.
So they did a great job, and they developed great relationships with the kids, and, you know.
You could see that when you went to the one function they had over there. Some of the students, they were talking to them. They really respected them. It's good. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you. Next on our agenda, we have 3 items that are potential board action items, not for tonight, but for consideration down the road. The first item on there is our sinking fund and our winter tax collection. As you know, our hold harmless was approved in August, but not in time for the summer tax collection. So there are some issues with that, and I wanted Sherry to. Is that the right slide?
It is.
Okay. I wanted Sherry to just kind of walk you through. There are some options here for the board, and so I will turn it
So I'll
over to Sherry.
first start by reminding the board that, as you know, last September, we levied based on last year's projected enrollment. So we're always a year behind. When I say that, I mean that last year we assessed the levy on about 3,300 students, knowing that at the end of the day, I should say 3,500 students, that at the end of the year when enrollment came, we'd be around 3,300 students. So at that time, we were assessing approximately 200 students more than what we really are entitled to. If you remember, we have to offset the next levy, the next school year's levy, by that amount. So in reality, when we start assessing this tax in January, that levy will be closer to 4.3814 mils instead of what was approved by the community at 5.134. Okay, does everybody remember discussions we've had in the past in regards to that? Okay. So the question is, what's at stake here? The stake is that we're losing 0.75 mils, and I failed to put a calculation on that, but it's, if I remember correctly, it's about $500,000 of lost revenue that we are definitely not entitled to due to the enrollment issue. The question is, as you all know, we passed a sinking fund in 2008, allowing the district at the time to levy 0.75 mils. We were able to do that for 2 years, and unfortunately with the decline in property tax values, we were not fortunate enough to do that anymore because we needed to take those 0.75 mils and put them back into debt service to take it from a 6.25 mil levy to a 7 mils, which is what we're currently levying for this school year. So again, the discussion I'd like to have with the board is, would they be willing to consider that the district assess the 0.75 mils due to the fact that the hold harmless millage will be lowered for this school year? And again, these levies would begin in January.
Okay, Ms. McLaughlin?
No. Let me expand on that because I know that's rather short and to the point. At the very least, I would expect that we would have a town hall type meeting or something with our residents, but I have a very deep concern about this. When we promoted this millage, and, granted, we know that it's based on the formula, based upon student enrollment, and based upon property values. But we assured the community that we needed that money, and that's why we went for the hold harmless. We did not say, give us the hold harmless and the sinking fund. We said, give us the hold harmless, and that 5.1314 is the maximum we'll assess, but we made it abundantly clear that the formula was gonna dictate what we levied. And to me, this is just a way for us to exercise a loophole, because the law allows us to levy up to what the voters approved. To me, that attacks the credibility of this board, that attacks the credibility in this community. This community is still licking its wounds from millage elections, not just at the school district level, but at the city level. And I think it's disingenuous of us to say we needed all this money for sinking fund, for hold harmless, and now, well, because of the rollbacks that have to happen, we still want to levy it. I don't question that we need money for repairs and buses and things of that nature, but I think we owe it to our taxpayers to say, if we need 2 mills for sinking fund, then maybe we need to discuss putting a sinking fund issue on the ballot. But backdooring millages has never been an option for me. Thank you.
Sherry, I have a question just for clarification, because when we did the sinking fund, at that time, we were gonna lower
The debt
sinking-
service.
The debt service to 6.25,
That's-
right?
Yes.
Correct.
And then the 0.75 will come from that, so it'll still be at the 7.
Correct.
But now you're asking to the 7 plus the point.
The same,
75.
the same concept, basically as a sinking fund and the debt that we passed in 2008 and turned into the community. School teacher. Okay, I need my glasses. Okay, so you can see what we approved, and what our board approved, and our community approved. And you can see the 30 mils, 30.1314, 30.1314 mils. And you can see, even with the change of adding the 0.75 mils to the levy, this is definitely going down, okay? We recap, or we recapture, I should say, 0.75 in the sinking fund, and the mills won't change. So it's the same concept.
So basically, if I'm understanding you, instead of it coming from the debt levy, it's coming from the hold
That's-
harmless
that's
millage
accurate.
instead.
Except legally, we're required to roll back the hold harmless.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Sherry, what's the dollar value of that hold harmless, roughly?
The total or the millage that?
No,
we're
the-
using?
the-
About
the-
500,000,
A year?
yes.
So it'd be $500,000 a year.
Close to it, it's a little bit less, between
So,
450.
between $450,000 to $500,000 a year that we would have for repairs or maintenance costs, that we could subsidize money out of our general fund and pay for things, right?
That's correct. And I don't think I need to remind you, because I think you already know this, that, there's still over $12 million of work to be done. We've had to take a hiatus for at least, is this the third year?
It's second
year.
Second year. Just to give you an example of what types of things are going on. I don't know if you remember, but we had a spaghetti benefit that was supposed to happen in the spring. I believe it was for the boosters that we had to cancel. We had some problems with our plumbing under the tunnels. And we repaired that, and it was paid for by sinking fund. Our insurance company suggested that we do a little bit of exploring down there to make sure that we weren't going to run into any potential problems. And we did a little bit of that this summer, and we are making repairs to it. So I'm just reminding you that there are things that come up that cost us around $8,000 just to get the repairs done. Now, we were able to capture some of that with insurance claims, but being proactive about it, what we're trying to do is to not dismiss or not have to cancel school for 1 to how many days, I don't know, and to cancel events. So that's just one thing that's come up recently, to give you an example.
Well, and I'll add to that a little bit. There are some pretty high priority items on the facility study, such as the parking lots, which are not fixing themselves. The crews have been doing some cold patching around, but we're going to be looking at slip and falls and safety hazards for cars. We have no money for that. This would provide us, the sinking fund, and again, it was already approved by the voters, would provide us with a bank account basically to fund some of those projects again, like what we did with the roofs. Because what's going to happen is we're gonna get to a situation within probably the next 5 years where, the sinking, even if we levied the sinking fund, it would not yield enough money to keep up with those repairs. You'd have to go for a bond, and if there's a bond, then you need voter approval, you have to pay interest on a bond. The beauty of a sinking fund is every dollar that we get goes right into projects versus having to pay back interest to bondholders. So that's the beauty of having that sinking fund. You already have a system set up to approve it. And, you know, we would be remiss if we didn't remind the board about that list of needs. We all know about the buses. I know you're familiar with that. Our mechanics say that we should be buying about 8 buses this year. We have zero money for that. But what we can do is, so for instance, Romulus Middle School today was shut down. At about 12:30, I learned that the root cause of that was a compressor that seized up that triggered a whole, circuit that just shouldn't have reacted that way, but it did. It shut down the whole school. At any rate, one of those compressors, repairs on that can be close to $10,000. That's something that would come out of our maintenance budget. We have maintenance money for that. However, it could also come out of the sinking fund account, which means that we could transfer some of that maintenance. $10,000 is about 1/5 of a bus. So that's the idea. We could, if we get a little bit creative with this, and I really disagree with what Mr. McLaughlin said about what the community authorized. They authorized a sinking fund. The deal that the board made was that we would not increase your taxes with the sinking fund, and we took it off the debt levy, which was the convenient way to do it at the time.
Okay.
That's no longer an option right now.
Now, this right now is discussion, because this doesn't have to be voted on until what, November? Is that correct? So we've got
I
time.
would say at the latest, I want to notify the city in October. I want to give them advance notice so they have time to input this on.
So we've got time to kind of let the community know.
Exactly. Yeah,
So it's
we-
not something that we're gonna rubber stamp tonight or in 2 weeks. We got time to let the community, if they got questions, we can inform the residents of this and see what kind of.
Yeah, if the board gives a go-ahead, we would develop a communication plan so that people understand it and are prepared.
And just to remind folks, I think you said it already, but, the sinking fund, if if this was something the board would put their blessing on, sinking fund can only be used for repairs and maintenance of buildings. We cannot use those funds to increase salaries. We cannot use those funds to buy textbooks or anything of that nature, so.
Well, I
Make it
think that's
clear.
one of the reasons why we really got the sinking
Yeah.
fund, because the residents really want our facilities to stay in tip-top shape. So that's why I don't think we got an issue with the sinking fund.
Now, the way you're showing it up there, you're showing the 2012, 2013, what we approved. And it comes, if I'm reading it right, 30.1314, and we're still gonna be 30.1314 by taking it from the hold
Right.
harmless and putting it to the sinking fund.
taking .75 from
Right. We're taking from there, and then we got the sinking fund, but we're still the same, we're not, the residents aren't paying any more.
Right, and these are projections. It could come in a little less than .75. Because remember, we're only allowed,
Yeah, we're only allowed to go to that number.
right. It'll all be predicated on,
So you're projecting between $400,000 and $500,000?
yes,
So if I'm right, that's basically 75 cents for every $1,000?
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Sandy?
No, but I too remembered is we told the community that we have extra money in the debt fund, and we would like to use that, move it out so we could use it for sinking fund, and if they approved it, there'd be no change in their taxes. Now the debt fund is not even covering it, and so it's really an extra tax, and that's not the way it was originally presented.
John?
No, not right now.
Danielle?
I'm torn. I'm torn because I know we need it, but I'm also torn with the fact that, as a taxpayer, when that hold harmless goes down from the 1.1314 to the 4.3, you have a sigh of relief as a homeowner that, I get a little bit of a cushion from the amount of taxes that I do have to pay. And, I'm torn right now. I probably need some additional, I I mean, not even additional information, but just more or less to kind of, you know, sound it off on some people to see what they think, and, you know, if this is something that they'd be comfortable with. And I mean, and of course, you can't talk to your whole community unless, like Mr. McLaughlin said, we have some sort of town hall setting
Right.
where we can actually engage our community so that they can come. But, you know, I mean, and I know that even with the millage that we had, that we just passed, it passed by a
2 to 1 almost.
2 to 1 margin. So, even with that margin, though, I think the voice is still there that we need a break. And so, I'm wondering if there is anything else that we could possibly look at first before we have to even consider this particular option.
Okay.
Not in terms of taxes, unless you
Right.
create, or not really even create if you went, well, you're already authorized for 0.75 mils.
Right.
So there's really not much you can do except if you wanted to increase that, but that
And that's
really
voter
doesn't
approval.
help. That is voter
Yeah,
approval if
and
you
that's
choose
another
to
election
increase
then.
it.
Yeah. So.
We just got over that
Yeah.
one.
Right. So you know.
You have about 6 years left on the sinking fund before we'd have to go back to the voters or
Right.
let it expire. But I guess what would be helpful for us is, if in the next few days you communicate to us what extra information, like I already see a need for, okay, what's the impact on the typical homeowner? You know, if my home
The
is
chart.
a market value of $60,000, how much would I save
true.
if we don't versus how much, you know, would I be paying? Because it's gonna be a pretty small amount for people, but I think people need to see that, and that would have to be part of our communication plan. Our purpose tonight was just to let the board know, because as Sherry said, there's a timeline for us letting the city know. It really is the board's prerogative, but we also want to let you know that there is definitely a need, and we are concerned about the facilities. You know, these no school days are really tough on our families and our kids also, in that, you know, you've got parents who were all ready to go to work, the car is warming up, and all of a sudden, hold everything. Yeah.
I do have one question.
Go ahead.
The tax levy for the millage that we just passed, when does that hit our homeowners? Does that hit our homeowners in December for the full amount?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
yeah, so, I mean,
Yes.
you know, and that's just another reason, I think, to kind of, you know, can we maybe get an option two?
Cheryl, you got any questions?
Yeah, well, I asked my one question, but my concern is, okay, when we got it, we told the residents one thing. I mean, my word to me is my word. So what I would have to consider, I mean, it would have to be clear to the community that this is what we were doing. Because I know times change, things change, but what you said shouldn't change. You know, it is what it is. So, rather than go back on what we promised them, say, okay, but this is what has happened since then, how do you feel about this? Because if it's a small amount, most people will say, and I've asked them this before, if you're only talking a few dollars, well, yeah, if it means a new roof or me paying $10 or $20 or dollars more, I'd rather do that. So I think we need to be clear and, to me, communicate that. That would be my issue.
Okay, great. Teresa?
Yeah, my problem is the same as everybody else's, just the credibility part of it, and so close to coming back from off of the election. And I kind of would want to hear what the community would feel about it. So the town hall meeting, or even like what we do at the budget meetings, getting some key community members or somebody to kind of bounce it off of them and kind of get their feedback, would help. And of course, option two, if there is one.
There's option two,
Okay. Rob, you got any additional ones?
Well, again, you know, to me, it's not about the amount, because it probably is, you know, 25, 30, 40 bucks. But to me, and to many other people, this appears, I shouldn't even say to me, because I knew this was coming. This looks pre-orchestrated. We got them to go for the maximum, and yep, we're gonna stick it to them. That's the perception that's gonna be out there. We told people there was a formula. I don't know if it was $246, whatever that per pupil rate. We told them that's what we needed to protect. We did not tell voters we were also looking at protecting the sinking fund. And I don't want to just have a meeting where we reach out and say, this is what we're going to do. What do you think? If we have a town hall, we actually need to, and I heard several people use the word engage, we actually have to let people interact and listen to what they say. And I'm confident they're going to say, as I believe Ms. Funderburg just said, you know, we love you, but we kind of need a break. And I want to respect this community. They were generous. They gave us a 2-to-1 margin on this millage because this board, this community, worked tirelessly to pass the millage. But we need to build on that trust, not say, oh, well, by the way, thanks. And I just think this is too soon. And if we need to, next time there's an election, we need to talk about going for 2 mills for sinking fund. Then if that's what we need to do, then that's what we need to do. Let the community own it. This is our outlined needs. Over 10 years, this is how we'll pay for it, and let them own it. But these accounting moves that people make, that's what gets people upset. And I just don't want to participate in it.
Okay. I've kind of got some of the same concerns. I mean, we've got to definitely make sure the community is well-informed. Communication is the biggest thing in the last election that proved that, is getting the information out. You know, I'd say give it to the community and let them see it. And as board members, if we hear the, you know, do we hear positive or do we hear negative back from them? Because, I mean, if we're hearing majority of positives, then maybe that's what we need to do. But if we're hearing majority of negatives, then we need to follow the community because, I mean.
One thought that popped in my head, you know, related to Mr. Coughlin's comments about too much too soon. So people are going to have a bump in taxes, just like they had a drop in taxes this past summer because we didn't collect the whole harmless. This winter, they're going to pay that back. All right. If we waited till next summer to begin the sinking fund, which financially is not a great move for us, but again, you know, keeping in mind that that we want to have time to explain to the community and also soften the impact. People are going to be paying the entire, a lot of that going around.
I
See
know,
what you started?
I didn't think so.
You all right?
It's some water.
Mine went down the wrong way.
Anyway,
That's what caused it.
levying it next summer, people's taxes are going to be lower than they were this past winter anyway. So that might be a time to consider as a plan B or an option 2. Something to think about anyway.
Just to give you some indication, a market value home of $80,000 with a taxable of $40 is about $30. Is $30 annual.
So $15 a tax. Okay.
Yeah.
I think
Nice.
with the
This
community.
first levy
Just
would
to-
be an entire
Right,
year.
and you know, and I know once you start
Right.
hashing out the numbers, if you're talking about, especially lower elementary grades, when a parent has to organize childcare because now they need to go, you know, you're talking $30-$40 a day just for childcare.
Emergency.
To, you know, have somebody watch your child for you while you're working. So I mean, in dollars and cents, it again, it totally makes sense. But I guess for me, you know, it's just like, wow, we just really, you know, we got the whole harmless passed, and you know, with some strong opposition, mind you, and to have to kind of go back, I don't know. I'm torn. I know that we needed that, you know, there are definite needs in the schools that need addressing. But I don't know. And I understand too that this is that same principle of, you know, neutral. I think we called it
Tax
neutral
neutral.
Tax
because,
neutral.
because you're just sliding bills from one category to another category. But you know, I think when we proposed this particular plan, the plan was from the debt fund to the sinking fund, and so there wasn't any discussion of from the hold harmless to the sinking fund. But then our circumstances were different. But again, I mean, if we have to move in that
direction, then I would wanna do it very slowly, because I think that, like you said, the communication is definitely key, but then also too, you know, we need to take kind of a census of our community and find out where they are, you know, financially. I don't think, don't feel like our community really has their foundation or their ground yet as far as, you know, what's been happening in the economy. That's still kind of, you know, kind of shaky and sinking, to use the sinking. They got sinking plans in their house too, so.
Well, I think, go ahead, Mr. McLaughlin.
Sorry. I just wanted to offer to Ms. Vanderberg, talking about a tax neutral, and I think you spoke about it in a previous round. People, they see a tax reduction coming.
Yeah,
They're,
they're looking for a break.
they're doing the giddy dance. And yeah, it may only be $30, but for at least one family on my street, $30 is about what they spend on groceries. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, it's that bad for some people. And yes, I can even say that we reference this in another matter. We have a whole district to look at. And I understand that. And I'm not arguing that the funds aren't necessary, aren't needed. This isn't really a wish list thing. But what my advocacy is, we can't put a price tag on trust. Right now, I think we've got the support of the community, and I would hate to see us do something that would take that, you know, one step forward, 9 steps back. I don't want to see that happen, and I'm worried that's going to happen, because this opposition group, I'm not going to be, they're going to be very vocal. They're just waiting. They're just waiting.
All right.
And
I think
I'll
we
stop
get the
beating the
message.
dead door.
I think
And
we
I
got it
guess
all. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one other point, is that since we're doing the whole amount in the next tax collection, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
going from nothing to the whole amount, even on that one tax collection, is gonna be a lot for the taxpayers, so, including myself. So, you know, it's a lot to think about.
Well,
Okay.
what I'm taking away from this is that probably there isn't support to do it with the December tax levy. So we'll
Doesn't
keep it
sound-
on our hit parade to bring up at another time. And that's really what we wanted, was some direction from the board on this. But we
We
wanted to
can
let you know.
look
what
at it
your
for maybe
options were.
spring taxes or something like that, see after everybody kind of settles down a little
I
bit,
just
but,
think that's one of those
My
pressure
husband
points.
called me out already.
all right,
Okay.
next one is board meeting location change.
Okay.
You want your stick?
You have
It's
the-
got
do
chalk
you have the
on it.
clicker? Oh, no, I need
This.
it. Oh, I don't need that.
I'm hiding my knuckles. if you're
I'm
getting
being
that.
soft.
I wouldn't hit you with it.
No, eat mine.
She's got the steel bar back there.
I was making it funny.
It
So
was
was I.
funny. It was.
Yeah,
Set you
I
up.
go the right way.
Set you up for that one.
Okay, we've been working with the city. As you recall, there are a couple concerns about us continuing to have board meetings in this location. Our equipment is aging, our furniture is aging, our sinking fund is dwindling, and we just had a discussion about the fact that we're probably not going to be replenishing it anytime soon. We already have a consolidation, intergovernmental agreement with the city. So the question, and we've been talking about this for a couple of years now, would it make sense for us to move our board meetings over to City Hall, where the facilities are better, the equipment is better, the video, everything else, the presentation of our meetings? There are a lot of people in the community that their only knowledge of the school district is what they watch at the board meetings, and so it's important to us to provide an accurate picture and a good picture, and a reliable picture. A group of us, John Theed and Rob McLaughlin and myself, met with some officials at the city after our last board meeting to kind of hash out some of the details. Basically, those charts are probably more information, and that's the city's information. What I want you to take away from that is the cost for us to have a board meeting over at the city is approximately $200 for a 2-hour meeting, which is typically what our meetings are twice a month. So about a $400 a month cost. we have an option, and we didn't know this until we met with the city. We weren't sure about the camera people. We love our camera people. And I think there were people that were kind of concluding that we would not have our own people anymore. That is not correct. All right? We have an option with the city. We can have our cameramen trained by the folks over at the city, and then they continue to do what they do here, just over there. So just like we move over there, they move over there. We can do that at the board's pleasure. I know that was a concern that many of the board members had, and some of the cameramen too, justifiably so. So what we're looking for tonight is direction from the board. We've had a lot of conversations about this, on whether you would like us to move forward. We can be ready to transfer over there starting November 1st at the earliest, because there are a lot of things that kind of we have to button down. We could put it off until January 1st if you wanted to, and just start the new year over at the board meeting, or we could put it off indefinitely. That's basically what I wanted to get out of this discussion.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. McLaughlin.
In case, you know, and for the audience's benefit as well, in case Carl didn't make it clear in his statements, you know, we talked about not having the sinking fund available for the facility repairs here. We're talking tens, probably almost $30,000 by the time you talk video equipment, microphones, and the benefit is the city already has that equipment. Your board meetings will now be live, and we'll still have the same capability to load them onto our website and things. So, you know, yes, it's a monthly expense, but we're not having to front out for, you know, the table that's falling down.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
One little interjection on the live board meetings.
Channel 19.
Yeah, that's our hope. There's still a little glitch with the channels that they think they might be able to work out, but I can't promise that it's going to be live right now.
Gotcha.
That's our goal, but it may be the tape delay still.
Okay. All right.
Gotcha.
Anybody else?
I had some questions.
Go ahead, Daniel.
One of my questions is, would we be, putting any stress on our budget with this particular numbers? I know that we are in the agreement with the city, but are we experiencing savings by moving over there? Are we adding a new line item to our budget and moving over there?
Well, we would be adding a line item to our budget, but you have to remember that if our goal is to communicate to the community and keep them aware what's going to happen when this system goes kaput is there isn't going to be any money in the till to fix it. And so we're looking at maintaining that. As far as the fraction of the budget, you know, it's a very, very small amount of the budget overall.
Okay, and then, you know, one of the things that we talked about with that intergovernmental agreement was the issue of contracts with our employees versus their employees. Have we looked at whether or not any of those contracts would be violated because now we're using our cameramen, or how is that?
Well, we have yet to have a sit down with the union. The idea, you know, the sequence of events would be to get the go-ahead one way or another from the board first, then we'd sit down and talk with the union and make sure their needs are addressed, and then move forward. Again, that's part of the reason we couldn't, even if the board said yes tonight, we wouldn't be ready at the next board meeting.
Well, I guess my only concern, I mean, well, I have a couple of concerns which I just voiced, but I think my number one would be just being able to afford it in the budget. I mean, we're already talking about wanting to switch how we levy, and, you know, maybe if that's already an issue, then maybe we should even hold off moving until we can get a better grasp on, you know, our budget for the year. You know, and I know that this is something that we've been talking about for a while, but, you know, I think, to me, if we're not experiencing a savings, and this is just one of those additional things that we have to pay out, then I say we stay here until the equipment is just busted and then we move over. So that's kind of how I.
Anybody else have any questions?
Well, there
Jan?
are times when we do go over 2 hours,
Yeah.
and even at 2 hours, it's $4,800 a year. And I guess, to me, it was because it would be televised is why it was the advantage, and yet, so if it's not gonna be televised, I mean, we wanted it to be a cost saving, and we wanted it to be televised. And I don't see where, it will be a savings if we don't do our equipment, but as long as our equipment is working, and we don't need to rent or use it is an extra.
All of our equipment, Mr. Chairman, I would just say all of our equipment's not working. Our microphones fade in and out. I hear from, and I'm sure you folks do too, I hear from countless people that can't hear us at home. They may see our lips moving, but they can't hear us because something happens with the audio. Our system is, what was explained to us at this meeting is our system is no longer compatible with Comcast's. So we're kind of patching and kind of jerry-rigging things around to at least get the meeting on, but there's more often than not no audio. And that, to me, I'm sensitive about the $5,000 a year, but I'm also sensitive about the community saying, we don't hear what you guys are doing. And one of the benefits, or one of the hidden benefits of this move is it changes our meeting night to another night, which then affords people that are active in the community that want to participate in both our meetings and council have got the opportunity to do so.
And we've
Because
had
they'll
that
be on
concern,
separate nights.
you know, a lot of people have concerned about that with the meetings on different nights, so. Ms.
Chair,
Buckley, go ahead.
I've had countless people say they can't hear us, even when it's on TV, you know, the picture's bad. I have a lot of seniors, even when they're sitting in here, saying, you know, I can't hear you, your mic, I can't hear you. You know, I'm soft-spoken anyway, but my mic doesn't work either. So I think it's only gonna be a matter of time before it will be kaput.
Ms. Beard, you
If
got it?
we're talking about communication and trying to, make sure the community, because there are some people that can't get to the meetings. I know some seniors that go to my church that watch it, they can't get to the meetings. So, they say, you know, it's so hard to hear, you know, we can't, you know, see the presentations that well, you know, just a lot of things that they have concerns about, so.
So
Well,
maybe,
how much would it cost just to replace the mics, so that we do have,
well, it's not just about the mics, it's about the camera equipment, and
Have we
it's,
checked, do we have any camera equipment at the high school, no
Well,
AV classes or?
let me take you in a little different direction, all right? So one school of thought is we stay here until, you know, the last microphone goes dead, all right? In which case, you know, you're gonna have a dwindling audience. You probably already have a dwindling audience, all right? You have a chance to do something that's new and improved. We're saying that you can afford it right now. One option would be just to move over to City Hall for now, and if we tell you 6 months or a year from now, gosh, we can't afford this anymore, let's deal with it then. You could do that, but you know, this is a strange comparison, but you know, one new student would more than pay for the additional cost right now of us going over to City Hall. And when you increase your communication, when you look more professional on camera, and you have a meeting that people tune into, you know, that could very well yield more students. You know, we have a lot of presentations like we had.
Let us
Stay
make the
here.
upgrades here.
But again, sending the message to the community that, you know, that you're trying to share facilities and watch out. You know, this room sits empty 12 nights every 2 weeks. 12 out of 14 nights. Their facility sits empty a great deal of the time. Why not? You know, why not combine forces? A lot of school districts have done that.
And if I could ask just-
Go ahead.
So then, are there any savings then for having us shut down this building? So we're over having our meetings over at City Hall now, and so this one doesn't, you know, there's no need for anybody to be here. So then are we experiencing any savings for not
Well, the
meeting
night
after
custodian is where
hours?
you would save savings. The custodian wouldn't have to be in the building as long. That's
So
where
I-
you would
know,
save.
I mean,
Well, and we may look down the road, you know, and you know, we downsized a couple years ago. Depending on how our enrollment comes in, we may be looking at that again, and it may be a possibility that that we move our offices from this building and to fill up another building. You know, it would be premature to make any speculation about that right now, but there may come a time. On the other hand, this room could be used for more of a district meeting facility, you know, places for teachers and staff to get together for meetings and things. You know, we could repurpose this as well. Hard to say. Right now, the question is what to do about the board meetings, and that's the first problem to solve. So we're willing to follow whatever direction you give us tonight.
I guess- Sandy, would you like to pursue it any further? going to the city hall or staying here?
You know what? I sort of, yes or no both ways. I mean, I don't believe in, I would rather see us invest our money in our own building than pay rent, because that's the kind of person I am. But I can see both sides.
So, John?
I mean, my point I made earlier, have we ever considered, if we go out to bid on equipment, have we ever considered like getting ground cameras, like they do at City Hall, where you have a camera out here, and it probably have a better mic system, and, I mean, since we're not live anyway, and the meeting can't be edited, you can take the SD card right out of there, put it on the DVD, and send it to our Comcast channel or our school board channel. I mean, I don't know if the cameraman can do that, but, I mean, if you had a camera that was out here, can't everything be, wired into that room right there?
I don't know the answer to that. I can look into that, though.
Because, I mean, I don't know if these cameras, I don't know how good they are.
They're-
Obviously, they're not good when I watch TV.
They're not that great.
But a floor camera, it seems that we would have these things laying around in audio class or at Barth or at WIC. I've seen cameras.
I don't know that we have any kind of camera, the quality that, I look at the ones at the city. I know those look similar to me to the ones that we rent for, high school graduation every year. I know we don't own anything like that, but again, I'm not an expert, but I can look into that.
Danielle, would you want to continue, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see, yes, continue, because I mean, we're gonna end up there anyway. It's
Sure.
what pretty much,
Continue.
It's just a matter of what the time frame is gonna be on if when we do.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Continue?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yeah.
Rob?
I would say continue, and I'm kind of in favor, to make sure we've got I's dotted and T's crossed, January 1st kind of a thing. That way we get through the holiday break without upsetting the apple cart. But in the alternative, if board members decide that we don't want to go forward with this, then I would say we make the investment now, we swallow the budgetary bill, we spend the money and do what we have to do. Because it would be what, about a 5 to 6 year payback? Or assuming we had to spend $20,000 to $25,000.
It's just, it's very difficult for us to make an investment like that when we know we don't have enough school buses.
Yeah, and we can't just run up the Visa card
Yeah,
because
whereas,
Gotta pay that too.
at home I
paying-
can use my Visa card
Yeah.
and get something on 5 years.
paying a little bit at a time, for rent, and it's rent versus ownership, but paying a little bit at a time is a lot easier for us to get by on than chunking down, a big purchase like that when our kids really need things.
So I would say move forward.
Teresa, you had a question?
Yeah, just expanding on what John had said. And then Mr. Weiss just brought something up and kind of gave me an idea, or at least a thought. You said that we rented the cameras for graduations and stuff. Is the rental cost of those, if we rented them for our monthly meetings, the floor cameras?
I don't know that it would solve the microphone problem, though.
Oh,
And-
okay. I just didn't know if the cost comparison would be cheaper than the $400 a month or not.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either.
Okay. All right, well,
Other than that,
I'll put it
I
on the
know it's
list.
necessary. but no.
why
I
don't,
don't believe the city's charging us for electrical or air or water charges, right?
It's, they're basically, most of this cost is for their labor, the people that they have to have on staff while we're there.
Well, I mean, there's a savings there.
We're paying a little bit for equipment rental.
all right, so to recap here, it sounds like, Mr. Weiss, we need to get some kind of idea of cost for different cameras in here and what it would cost to upgrade the system the board's asking. Sounds like a majority of us want to have you pursue it. I like the fact that we can utilize our own employees, because nobody in the district is going to be losing any jobs.
Right.
I like that fact because, they are valued employees, and we get them trained, and they can utilize equipment. That'll actually help us save a little bit of money, too. I just wished, actually, it would be a little cheaper, considering all the years we've ran recreation in our buildings here, and we never charged the city a dime, but, and we spent a lot of electric and water and everything else for them, but, I think if you got the prices of the quotes for the cameras and microphones, that way the board can have what it would cost to upgrade,
I think we
and
can
then
do
we
that.
can weigh that out too. But I think January 1 would be a good thing to start with. That way, everybody knows it's the beginning of the year, but we definitely make sure that we get it communicated to the public. The bigger room does have benefits, especially when we have presentations for students. More parents are allowed to sit in. It is bigger, we all know that. True, our room does sit empty quite a bit, but City Hall sits empty quite a bit on some of their meetings unless they have controversial issues come up too, so. it- No, I think it's Brownstown, but, but anyways, I think if you got that, I think we can make a better decision, but I think the majority of the board here would like you to pursue it. I mean, I like the fact that we can use our own employees still. That was one of my main
Feedback
concerns.
off that, their cable director actually had high regards for our cable people. They had no problem with them and knew them both.
Which one, Steve
Our
or
camera
Steve?
people.
Both. And they had good words for our two people.
Okay,
Okay, good.
thank you.
Next item.
All right, next item, the child care program at Romulus Elementary. Again, as I summarized for you in the communication I sent out to the board, there were some original goals with this. I'm going to let Sherry kind of recap those goals.
Do you want me to use the microphone? I have a microphone. If it works. So, as a reminder, the program goals to providing child care, having a child care center in Romulus Elementary. The first one was to support the district's early education, childhood efforts for our community, because we believe that, you know, we're lacking in that department. We have a very small GSRP program that operates with limited space. We now have, but have relocated the Head Start, which is not a district initiative, but it does provide preschool types of services for those who qualify. Again, I was told that they also turn students away. Those are just the educational types of preschool programs that we offer. We'd like to increase the likelihood that many of these children would attend our schools after being in at least one of our elementaries and getting to know some of our staff and the way that Romulus Schools operates their educational programs. It would be a nice fit. To create a revenue source for vacant classrooms. As you know, there are several classrooms in Ramel, and it's the only building in the district that has space, as I know it right now, that we'd be willing to, you know, pilot this type of program. And the third would be to develop for our own students, our high school students, a child care certification program for the secondary level, that we do not offer to students right now. So those are the goals. I know that there were several questions that were emailed to Mr. Weiss, and I believe we responded to all of them.
I know some of the questions got out to everybody. Did everybody get the email with the answers, the responses to it? And there was some communication, there were some issues on that, but Sandy, let's start for you. Do you have any concerns or questions, comments about it that you still don't have answered?
I guess I would have hoped that we would have said, this is what we want, here's what we have, here's what the rent is, do we have someone interested, and gave everyone an equal opportunity.
Okay. John?
No, I'm good right now.
Danielle?
I did have, I know one of the things that came up in regards to the program was, what would that look like if we decided at some point to open it up? And, again, I just, as being fair to other business owners who I would like to avail them the same opportunity that this young lady who's brought her proposal to us to make sure. But in moving forward, one of the things that I would like to see is policy addressing how we do this in the future. So then that way we have something kind of engraved in stone. And I don't know if we would give maybe some examples from MASB or some other surrounding districts on how they would handle, leasing and getting business proposals and that kind of thing. So then that way we develop a system, not only for ourselves, but also something for our community to follow if ever an opportunity came up in the future for them to, lease space. But then also too, we could govern what that looks like. So who are we gonna be leasing space to? Do they have to be solely involved in the education, or are we talking about, venturing out to, some other sort of business? So what does that look like on our end? But then also giving them the opportunity to be able to submit a proposal if the opportunity comes up.
Okay. Cheryl?
Not just, everybody's asked all the questions that I had. I just wanna keep rehashing them, so I'm good right now.
Teresa?
Yeah, I'm in the same position. I'm still going through all the comments and everything. What I wanted answered was answered, and I kind of agree with some of the other stuff everybody else is saying, so.
Rob?
You all shaking your head down. Thank you. First, I just want to say, because there are some, and not necessarily at this table, out in the community, that think that this is something, I have an axe to grind with this vendor. I wouldn't know this vendor if she jumped up and hit me. Granted, I would get to know her in a real hurry if that happened. That's not relevant to me. What's relevant to me is the process and the way this came about. That's where my problem is. But Mr. Chairman, specifically addressing under, in the superintendent's responses, and I'm gonna purposely skip names here. I'm not gonna mention any names.
If you give, you could read the response that they give for the
I'm-
RC numbers?
No, I'm not even up in there yet. It just says that basically the building principals were made aware, several principals were aware of local child care providers in the community that may be interested in working with the district to start a partnership. And then it names one principal as being the only principal to contact the superintendent's office with an interested person. The comment I wrote to the side is, so this places the onus on the principals to solicit business in this district. That's not in their job description, that's not their function. And I think it puts building principals in a very awkward situation if they start saying, Mrs. Smith or Mr. Jones, we're recommending for there, because now that reputation, if you will, of that building principal is now attached to that person forever, and that may or may not turn out to be a beneficial thing. That's not what I'd like to see our principals working on. So that jumped out in my head. You did answer the questions I presented to the best of the ability you could, Carl and the rest of the administrators, and I appreciate that. And I don't mean to be facetious when I say to the best that you could, but again, this is a project that the cart got put before the horse. You don't have the data to give me the answers I need on some of these questions, and I understand that, and that's the crux of the problem. As I reiterated in my email, I still have a problem with us using public property to benefit a private enterprise, especially without transparency before the fact. That's a deal breaker for me, and I made that abundantly clear last time we met. I feel the lease fee that is in this, at $250 per classroom per month, is way too low. I wish, if the building is being run during the summer, and perhaps this is an ask me question, but I thought if we had anybody occupying our buildings in the summer, we had to have a custodian present. Who's paying for that? I see no provisions for that yet. Who is preparing? I understand the lunches are gonna be served in the classroom. Who's preparing those? Is that gonna be through our subsidized program? I certainly hope not, because our program's not licensed to provide food for daycare.
Are we talking about Chartwells?
Yes.
They do, because we support Head Start.
Okay, but Head Start's a county program.
It is, but it's not a district program. They are serving students that are outside of our K-12
To a
instruction.
taxpayer-funded program, that I'm saying. So would they be paying the same rate
They do
to
not.
Chartwells? They'd be paying a full rate?
Yep, we have an
That's-
agreed upon separate rate for them.
Okay, and that's what I just for the audience's edification, and any board members that may not have seen this in my email, I specifically asked about the pricing, and that I'd like to see documentation if this gets moved forward, because I have a concern about the general food service program subsidizing this. I believe we're rushing to make a decision on a program that has many potential risks and unknowns. And the last item is the building principal that's serving as a district liaison. Is this something that was volunteered or agreed upon? Is there a stipend involved, and was it negotiated through RASA?
There was no stipend ever discussed. There was no negotiation, but the principal is in agreement. She has a few concerns,
Yeah,
but
I don't know if
they're
I
not.
technically call her a liaison. We've just kept her abreast of what's going on in her building. We do not expect that the principal at Ramel to take on additional duties due
Right.
to this daycare.
But it's a program in her building, no different than Boys and Girls Club is a program at WIC, or, you know, the dart swimming is a program that operates
The
in
only-
high
Well, except
school.
Boys and Girls Club isn't operating during the school day.
Right.
Right.
That's my big problem.
Well, and that's what makes this a little more ticklish in terms of safety and, and everything else. And those are details that would still have to be refined a little bit. But they're, you know, those are not irresolvable issues.
Okay, I guess
I
I'm,
did have one more, but I just lost my train of thought, so if you wanna have
okay,
any other
I
conversation.
got a couple concerns on your comments. One, for the, number 3. You know, I asked about the pilot program, about offering to other people, and you said your recommendation would be to announce this program as an expansion with the current provider. I definitely don't agree with that. That's not showing transparency to the district, and it's not allowing anybody else in the community that has the capabilities of also doing something like this. I'd only agree to this if we can let it go as one, as a trial basis, and then we open it up to other people to find out if this is a need that we need in the community.
Okay.
I agree with the rental. I think it is a little low, especially at summer hours. How are we going to charge that? Because based on the last couple years, we have been doing group cleaning with our custodians, so we've been only in the buildings a couple weeks in the elementaries. So how is that going to work? The other thing is the program. I said, my recommendation was 90 and 120 days to get a report back, not run it for a year. If the board feels unhappy with what's going on and how the program's going, or we're having issues that we get back from the building principals about things, it needs to be canceled. Giving the parents 30 to 60 days, I think, would be acceptable. This way the parents can provide other means of childcare. I don't want to just say, here, the doors are shut today and you can't, you know, that's not right for the parents. It's not all their fault. But they also mentioned about a buzzer system. Who's paying for that?
The district would be.
That'd be part of the cost that's rolled in.
Then that needs to be part of the cost, the heads up, the setup cost, because we don't need a buzzer. Our schools are fine. If she wants to use the building, then she needs to pay for that buzzer. That's as far as I'm concerned. But, I mean, them are my issues on the comments that you had. The summer hours were definitely because the elementary schools are only open for 2 weeks unless we're doing a program like similar to what WIC did last year, or this year, basically. You know, how is that gonna work, and what would their hours, if it's basically 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., that's 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, $250. I think we could find people that like to rent a room to live in it for $250. So, I mean, that's a little, it's a little low as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead, Rob. You had your question, and Danielle.
Yeah, I found my questions. That was, one of my questions was, how much do we charge driver's ed? Don't we charge them like $20 an hour?
Yes, in the evening.
Yeah, well, and to me, a rental fee for a classroom space is a rental fee for a classroom space, whether it's 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. So, you know, because to me, if I ran one of the, I believe there was 3, last I participated, there were 3 driver's ed
I'm not even
places
sure.
renting from
Not
us.
even sure.
If I was any one of them, I'd be looking for the same sweetheart deal.
Just
Because
keep,
if, you know,
just keep in mind, though, that, you know, the custodians are cleaning those buildings once those classes are over. Whereas with the daycare, custodians are not responsible for that area at all.
until the mice come in, because food's been in those rooms.
But we have that situation at GSRP too. I mean, I'm just,
Yeah,
and I know we clean
yeah,
them, but we
exactly.
handle the lunches the
We
same way,
clean
same
them.
with Head Start.
Yeah, but we clean those buildings.
Head
This
Start,
one,
Head Start
yeah.
cleans their own space.
With their own staff,
Yes.
Understandable. The only other question I had, or the comment, and Mr. Kruger, you asked if, earlier about, I'm referring to RCS comment 19, where it does speak about this vendor is utilizing information from Head Start, which, okay, that's wonderful and great. And she's using as part of her program, Bart's Move to Music program. Why is our staff providing a daycare center with curriculum? Not our function. Now, I hope I'm not putting our staff behind the 8 ball unfairly, but It's not our function to provide curriculum for daycare centers.
I don't think our staff is
the
really
focus-
providing anything. I think
the
you're
focus
misinterpreting.
is to align the early childhood programs with
Yeah.
what to expect when they get to the
Did
kindergarten.
she have
and-
children go through
She
Bartha?
did.
Maybe have
She did.
experienced that? Is
Yes,
how she's
yeah,
coming
and
up with
most of her
that?
students
Okay.
are, or most of her daycare students
Okay.
have
I would guess that there's probably some copyright issues that
Well,
went on.
it's,
All right.
Move to Music is like Brain Gym.
Yeah.
It's that type of a concept.
All right, Cheryl, you had a question, and Danielle?
Yeah, just, actually, I think Danielle was before me, but on the fee, Sherry, is there any other districts that have this type of leasing?
I have
that
not,
you check?
I have not inquired,
Okay,
so I'm sure that there are, but I'm not.
okay, you just based,
100%.
how did this fee come about, kinda just?
What I did is I took the cost, so basically what they'd be responsible for is water, heat, and electric. They're cleaning their own rooms and providing their own cleaning supplies. In terms of trash removal, they will not be using ours. They will be removing their own trash from the building and locating it in removing it and disposing of it off-site. Some of the other items, the biggest item in operations is obviously the custodial staff, and they're not, I've already mentioned to you, they're not using that. So what I did was I took the annual cost, which is around $38,000, took the number of classrooms and basically divided it out to what a per classroom amount would be and added 15%.
Okay.
The gym area, the cafeteria, and the halls, I don't consider them to be used by the daycare program. They might have minimal use to the gym area for 20 minutes, but it was, it really depends on the scheduling there. I'm being told that it's possible, but, I made it clear to the daycare provider that our children, K-5, come first in every aspect. So if there are available times to use playground equipment, things of that nature, we can consider it, but it's not a guarantee.
So one of the things that we did is, if we go back in time a little bit, was we made a deal with Head Start for $1 a year for an entire building. They are now a revenue-generating program in the district. We charge them rent, and they contribute to our bottom line in a positive way. At first, we really didn't know how that was going to go, so we worked a very reasonable deal. It lasted a few years, and then we changed the circumstances. It could be down the road that we find out that $250 a month is not enough money, all right? On the other hand, if we price ourselves out of the market, we wouldn't get anything, and we would just have empty classrooms. Again, our goals were to maximize the use of our buildings, to provide a service to our staff, our community, and also, as Sherry mentioned, to possibly down the road create a program where our high school kids could get a certification in child care, and go into business on their own, or be, or work for money, get a job doing something like that, maybe in one of our schools. The idea is this is a pilot. What we need now, we've heard the concerns, and we've got some homework to do, some additional homework. Some of that won't get done until we start the program. If we start it, what we really need from the board is direction. She can be prepared to start November 1st, that was my understanding, which I think is probably a good amount of time, again, to give her time to transition. The building is ready. Margie is, there's some more conversations that we need to have with Margie and our provider. What we need now is either the go-ahead or just say, let's table this, we'll put it right next to the sinking fund to bring up, later down the road. That's what we really need, is some direction from the board.
I'll start over the court. Sandy, what do you want? You want to move ahead, or do you want to table it?
I'd table it.
John?
I like the table.
Danielle? Cheryl?
I think it's something the community needs. So I'd say, on one stipulation, is that we get all our questions answered. So I say move ahead.
Say what now? Move ahead or table? Teresa?
I say move ahead, but I like the answers to the questions we brought up tonight.
We'll do our
Rob?
best.
Well, I would say
Yeah.
table it like we did the first time this got brought up a month ago, and the board said, don't bring it back to us before, until after the fall. But the comparison, just so that we're comparing apples to apples here instead of apples to oranges, the Head Start situation that happened at Burton Center, where they leased for $1 a year, they assumed 100% of the operational cost of that building. This isn't happening here. We still have the wear and tear on the building, including the roof, including the cooling plant. No.
Tom, can I, just one other question?
Yes.
If we didn't do this in November, what would be the other time frame?
January or next year?
I'm not sure that this provider would be willing
hang on.
to go it again. We'd have to ask, but I don't know that any of these things would change.
Well, and if I can add to what you just asked, Cheryl, my fellow board members have said, you know, as long as all the questions are answered. One of the questions and concerns that I brought up, and most, if not all, board members spoke about it a month ago, was the transparency issue. That's not gonna go away if we proceed with this vendor. You know, that's the ugly reality of this.
Do we know, I guess we don't know if there are other daycare providers out there.
No, we don't. And
We
it
really
could be
don't,
nobody
but-
is.
But when we rent to any other organization, you know, when we rented the pool to DART, when we give WIC to Boys and Girls Club, we never put an ad in the paper
Solicited.
saying, anybody else wanna do this for us instead? We've never done that.
Well, my question was gonna be, how many other vendors, that leads to my question, how many other vendors have we brought in here that have come to us with a good, solid plan? And we said, okay. And then, and, you know, and there's some that we haven't. So I don't know the process, I guess I missed the meeting, but we've asked the we asked, okay, you guys need to, we have some budget issues, you need to think out the box, okay? Come up with something that's gonna bring in some revenue. We want you to think out the box. And then we kind of, you know, kind of snap you in that box and don't let you out, because you're trying to do some things, and you've done a lot of work. Thank you for your hard work, because you've done a lot of work with that. So, I guess that's my thing, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword. So, you know, we don't do that for everybody, so it must have been something about this particular situation that was a little different. And from what I can hear from everybody, it looks like the process, maybe of how it happened, and maybe not being able to get it out to other people to bid on it. That's kind of the things I'm hearing, to make sure it's transparent to the community. But I don't know, would it be somebody we would accept outside of the community to bring something into our building? So,
Well,
Can
I think if
One sentence I can
Yes.
address where I'm coming from, because, you know, I've been very vocal about this. One sentence. This is a for-profit situation. The others were not.
That's what I was wondering, how many things do we bring in that make a profit versus no profit?
Okay.
You know, this Boys and Girls Club, is it in it for a profit? Boys and Girls Club?
No, they're a nonprofit
So that's what
organization.
my question was, when, before Rob brought it up, is
Right.
how many things that we have in our school that make a profit versus not a profit?
so,
Like the swim program, is that a profit or not a
It's a profit.
Okay,
okay, one other.
okay, go ahead, Cheryl, last one, and then we'll move on.
So the profit, I don't know what she would be making, what she charges a child. So, you know, if, you know, her profit would be greater than what our profit would be, because we're just renting space. It's
Right.
just the advantage to the community to have this service. So, okay, I just kind of wanted to.
And we are turning children away, or they are turning children away from Boys and Girls Club. Now, I know it's just an after-school program, but there's a waiting list to get in there. I mean, there definitely is a need. And I don't think
Oh, I
any of
know
you are
there's a-
saying that there's not.
I know there's a need, because I've heard several people have asked.
All right,
me
so-
about it.
So what
Let's-
we're really asking for is permission to start on a small scale, and I heard you loud and clear about if it expands, then we put an ad in the paper, and you all come and give us a proposal, and we'd be willing to do that.
Well, it looks like, you know, the majority wants to go ahead and move ahead, but like I said, a lot of people all have the same comments, that they want rest of the questions answered and clear before, and it seems like, you know, the biggest one I had was not saying that this person's got carte blanche, they can go to,
Yeah,
you know,
I
the
got that.
the comment you got in there really, that made me a no there. Get that retracted, where if, after the 120 days, the board revisits this, if it's a program that we continue want to do, by that time, we'd have enough information from the building principal, if they have any issues, the head custodian, if we got issues, then we can say, yes, we want it in the rest of the buildings, or no. That's my theory, and the summer hours, that's gonna be an issue that we gotta, so if you get them questions answered, I think maybe other people.
So here's how we would proceed with, I'm hearing we have the direction to proceed, would be, our next step would be to develop a rental agreement that would button down those
No, I think
types of-
the next step, actually, Carl, is gonna answer the rest of them questions, get them
Well-
clarified before we get the rental agreement.
Well, I think I've already said that what we would do if, if the program expands and you want to open it up, we would open it up. Most of your questions, I think, the other questions about
Summer hours is the biggest one.
summer hours, those kinds of things, those would be part of the rental agreement. So if there are summer hours and if it requires an additional custodian, that has to be built into the cost. You know, again, those are things that we get, you know, having a little negotiation session with the provider. And really your, you know, your final approval is going to be, you know, we have to bring the rental agreement to you for approval. That would be the process. And, you know, in a perfect world, I'd like to say we'd have that ready for you at our next meeting. I'd hope for that. But it's probably gonna be a little, it's probably gonna be a little farther down the road. You know, I have to, you know, if we're going to move ahead, then we move ahead. And that's what I heard from you, and I have, you know, Sherry and I have both taken notes on the questions and concerns, and we'll get responses to you on those, and
But again, can you add the fact that we need to have some policy put in place? We need to, I wanna see something that we have as a concrete process that we moving forward so that we don't have this particular issue. Because if we don't put anything in place, then we're gonna find ourselves with another program or something that comes up, and we're gonna have this whole roundabout, do we table it, do we keep moving, what you wanna do? And so let's put something in place that gives us a process on how to handle it in the future.
gotcha.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have to say this. There are people that are saying, well, let's look at this in 90 or 120 days, and if it's not going the way we want, we shut it down. Then who does this community crucify? The vendor or this Board of Education for shutting the program down and putting their kids out? That was one of the initial things. People can throw darts at me all they want about Rob worried about public relations. Well, yeah, I am, because we have a school district to run. And if we infuriate 100 parents by saying, well, you know what, we're not that into you anymore, so your program's done and over with, but we'll give you 30 days notice to get out of our building. Who's gonna get the repercussions for that? The school district or the vendor? Anybody, look me straight in the face and say the vendor's gonna get that heat. We're gonna get the heat.
Yeah, I mean, if you
And
start-
that's
yeah,
why
I
we
mean-
need to dot our i's and cross our t's before we cross that river. That's all I'm saying. Thank you. Can we have 2 minutes, or I'll excuse myself?
Yeah, let's take a 2-minute break real quick, okay?
Thank you.
And then we'll get back.
What did we say about the executive session?
You all back?
No, waiting for Cheryl right now.
Okay.
Anna,
All right, the next item.
never mind.
All right, we're back, folks. The next item we got is staffing and employee relations update.
Okay, just to give you an idea, and again, our numbers are still moving in the right direction. We're still increasing students, but every year around this time, we give the board an advisory, and I have a little handout for you. To kind of show you where we are. This is a 6-year history of our enrollment trends. And where we are as of last Friday was 2,798 students. We're about 2,850 now. We picked up some from there. And this is the number of certified staff that we have. And this is our ratio. So you notice that right now our ratio, a student-teacher ratio, is the lowest it's been in the last 6 years. Instructionally, that's a good thing. Financially, that's not so hot. I will tell you that we've been staffing very tightly. As I informed the board before, we only officially hired 1 kindergarten teacher per building based on a decision that we would make later on after the kids showed up. Right now, it looks like we're going to be expanding to 2 teachers in kindergarten at 4 of our 5 elementaries. However, we're not adding additional permanent staff. We're moving some staff around because, again, because of the numbers being low, we're not able to afford to recall additional staff. We still have a number of teachers who are still on layoff. The table to the right is our support staff, and our support staff ratio also, again, smaller ratio than we've had in the past 6 years. So we're looking at those things. I also want to just give you a cautionary note. Remember, there's head count and there's actual FTEs, full-time equivalents. Our full-time equivalent, just to give you a ballpark, our full-time equivalent number, in other words, what we actually get funded for from the state is full-time equivalents, is going to be substantially higher than this. A rule of thumb is probably about 180 more full-time equivalents than this, so that puts that, a little over 3,000 FTEs. Again, that's not a hard and fast number. It won't be until count date, but our enrollment trend of losing 200 plus students a year looks to be what we're experiencing now. We will still probably pick up a few students the remainder of this week, but the big gains were last week from the first day of school until now. So that's one thing. Some of you had some concerns that were shared with me via email about class sizes being too high. I just want to remind the board that this time of year, we're for this week and next week, what we work on is smoothing out the class sizes. You're going to have high school classes that might have 37, 38 temporarily. Gives us time, and the union understands this. They know that we need time to change schedules and meet with students and maybe close some electives that don't have enough kids, those types of things. We're doing some similar work with our elementary principals. We're looking creatively in some possible multi-age scenarios, some things that we got into a few years ago, got out of a few years ago, but we're going to have to take a look at some of those things in order to live within our means as well. But hopefully most of that will be smoothed out by the end of this week. So that's the other thing, and I do want to let the board know, if you get people that are concerned by class sizes, there's two big things that we look at in terms of our elementary schools. The top chart up here is across the district by grade, class size averages. So the first row going across is 2011. In other words, our average kindergarten class across the district, across 4 buildings, in 2011 was a little under 25. In 2012, we're a little over 25 at kindergarten. That's based on the number of staff that we have right now. So you can, you have a copy of that. You can read through that at your leisure. So that tells us that in terms of the number of teachers we have versus the number of students, we're pretty appropriately staffed. Again, a little bit smaller ratio than we'd like to have, but that's where we are right now. A few more kids will fix that, and we're hoping to get them. Looking at the buildings, on the other hand, is another thing that we address. So looking at Barth, in 2011, the average class at Barth, that would be K-5, was about 26. This year it's a little higher, it's 27. Still well below, the limits. And there you see Hale Creek, Wick, and Rommel. Now that doesn't mean that there wouldn't be 1 or 2 classes that are way too low or on the high side as well. And we're still in the smoothing business right now. This is something we go through every year.
Well, I'd like to, if you don't mind, there's a member in the audience that actually submitted a request to speak and exactly on this subject here. Is it Cody? You want to come on up and, since we're talking that, it might as well address your concerns. That's why I called you.
Excuse me, if we have you
The
can
mic-
grab the mic over on the side. So
K-O-T-Y.
Top switch.
Huh?
My name is Carol Cody. I have a daughter in kindergarten at Wick Elementary. She has 34 kids in her class. I understand that in the past, growing up, we've had 34 kids, 33 kids. I've noticed a trend. I'm a preschool teacher. I've noticed a trend. I have more kids with learning disabilities, more kids with speech disabilities, more kids with behavior issues, and it's growing increasingly. So maybe 34 or 33 in the past, I don't know how long it's been this way, might not have been as bad, but now that we see an increase with these disabilities, I think that 34 to, in a class might be a little too much and overwhelming for a teacher. And I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about that, But I feel, do I really want my child is reading at a first grade level in kindergarten. She's been reading since she was 4. I work hard as a parent to make sure that my child is learning. How am I expecting other teacher who's so overwhelmed to be able to accommodate my child along with all these other children with the disabilities? We have a wide spectrum, and I don't think it's fair as a parent and a teacher to be able to do that to other teachers. You say, you said, one new student pays for the operating cost of City Hall. What happens if I take out my student because I don't get the need that she has? Now what's going to happen with City Hall? You guys can't go there? Is it really worth that? That's my concern.
And again, I want to remind you, we are in the smoothing business right now. We're working on addressing the high classes and balancing those. I will tell you that historically, I don't know if this is your first child in the district or not, but historically, we've always put aides in or some type of support. The last couple of years, we've been able to put a second certified adult in those rooms that end up where we can't make the numbers where we'd like them to be, but we do not endorse having kindergartens higher than 30, whenever we can. So we are still working on it. Give us a little bit of time.
How long do you
Well,
need?
as I said a few minutes ago, by the end of this week.
By the end of this week, so I should see something by the end of this week, and if I don't, then what do I do as a parent and a concerned citizen to make sure that, what are my options?
Well, I would say that, you begin with the building principal
Okay.
and discuss your concern with the building principal, and she'll let us know, and we'll do what we can. But we don't normally have kindergarten classes that are 34 unless we have a second adult in the room. And the one thing that that becomes difficult in some buildings, and this really is the case at WIC because I believe we have enough for 2 sections at WIC. I'm going from memory, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have 2 sections at WIC. So because of our at-risk grant, we're required to keep one class lower than the other, but the higher class gets a second certified adult. So it's really, if it ends up being 34, it would be 2 classes of 17 almost when you look at the student to adult ratio, which your
Which is
preschool
fine.
person, yeah.
I don't, that's not my concern. It's just when I come in and I see 34
Oh, I
and
know.
I see the increase in disabilities and I see, because my kids are going to you guys.
Right,
Or,
right.
that
That initial
may be.
shock that you see with all them
So-
students and one teacher, but it takes usually about a week or 2 to kind of get all the numbers and all the students coming in, so then we can hire the staff, rehire the staff and get them back on the payroll. We don't want to bring them back and then we're paying them and we don't have enough students
Right,
for them,
and
so
I
that's,
absolutely understand that.
Right.
That's not a problem. I just want to make sure that, because I think a teacher's contract, you're allowed 34 kids in your class, right?
Not in kindergarten.
Not in kindergarten, it's
No.
30 then?
It's lower,
No.
yeah,
Okay.
it's lower, but
Okay.
our dilemma is that we always have a large influx of parents in August and even September that enroll their kids. They don't enroll ahead of time, so it becomes very challenging for us to plan ahead. And so, unfortunately, we have to use the first couple of weeks of school to make those adjustments and smoothing. We would love to start the school year with all those class sizes just perfect the way we want, but we're not going to.
In real life, and I understand that, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry.
So
But in real life, I do understand that. I just want to know what my options are, and what I see, and I just know how overwhelming it can be, with the increase in, for a teacher. And I know at the end of the day, the teacher is just completely exhausted when you have that many kids in a class. And I just don't think that that's really fair to them. So,
No.
As a district, if we want to be able to keep our kids in Romulus schools, you're going to want to make sure that, within means you can accommodate, and like you said, give you to the end of the week. So, and I will.
Fair enough.
yes, ma'am.
And I guess I would be asking Mr. Weiss this, is there something that our administrators, especially in the lower case setting, K through 5, some sort of communication that we could send out to our parents that kind of explains what our best practice is in order to keep our classroom sizes down, so that if we have a parent who is contemplating, 35 kids is way too much, I'm pulling my baby out, that if you give us at least 2 weeks to make sure that our classroom, so then that way we've communicated and let them know that we understand that it's a concern, and we don't want you to pull your child out. We want to be able to service them, but that we need to to have some room to be able to make sure that that placement looks right in each classroom setting, but that usually is a 2-week window.
Maybe something at the first day of school that
Yeah.
they can, your student may come home and say, your
Right.
class
Yeah.
size is large, but give us time to work out the numbers to move
Yeah,
people around and get the staffing.
Yeah, some
Okay.
sort of communication so that they know and that they could, you know, find comfort in the fact that it's something that we are working on and that it's not gonna be that way the whole school year.
Right, okay. Yes, Mr. McGuire.
Thank
Go.
you. I would add to that and say that, you know, it would also establish that communication. Maybe it is a new parent, and if you have a concern about the class size or your child's classroom experience, please communicate that with the building principal, things of that nature. But I was gonna specifically ask, and I know you alluded to this, Carl, in your weekly update Friday, can you specifically make sure that we're made aware of kindergarten class sizes in all buildings? Thank you.
Great. Mr. Thied?
Yeah. I piggyback right off what you said. I brought my concerns to Mr. Weiss this week because my daughter is in first grade at WIC, and I'm afraid to go home tonight because my wife wants me to come home with answers tonight, and I gave her the answers that Mr. Weiss told me. You know, we're in the smoothing mode, just relax this week. And so I could be dead Friday. So I'm going to be on him also because I have to go home with answers tonight, and I was kind of hoping this meeting goes to my wife goes to bed, but it ain't gonna happen. But yeah, I mean, that's a concern for us because there was over 30 in one day, and you know, some of these kids, they're terrors. I mean, I went with 4 of them one day on a field trip, and I had the worst time of my life. And it's tough for a teacher to have 30, 31 kids, especially kindergarten and first grade. You know, they're probably more well-mannered at 4th grade or 5th grade, but
Nope.
so,
Remember,
well,
look at the ratios.
yeah, but it's tough because I seen the kids the other day when I picked up my daughter, and it was just like a romper room, and it was a madhouse at first grade. Obviously, kindergarten's no better, but yeah. So I know what you're saying because my wife was stumbling through schools to go to too, and I said, no, you can't yet, you know. So
And
so you may not see me next
And
year.
I went through the same thing with my kids,
Yeah.
believe me. It's,
Well-
you know, we're public schools and we only have a certain pot of money and we have to do the best we can.
Okay.
And
I
Tom-
thank you for bringing up your concern. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Tom, you wanted to talk a little bit about
Yeah.
some building visits?
Yeah, what I talked to Mr. Weiss about was some of the things here. People in the community, as we've all heard, said they don't see the administrative staff, they don't see some of the board members in the building, and what we were thinking about doing, and I was talking to some other board members in some districts, maybe on a Friday, and then not every Friday, maybe once a month, we pick a building, and any board members and administrators that want to go to that building, try to get there around lunchtime, maybe have lunch with some of the students. So we're seeing the building, we're seeing the staff, we're engaging with the students, we're even eating the meals, so we can validate or kind of,
You did not go there. School lunch, seriously?
you get peanut butter and jelly if you can't afford it.
Oh,
I
you
got a
have to
cheese
try-
sandwich.
You have to try our new menu, I gotta tell you.
But,
Very good.
actually, I had a slice of pizza from the middle school. If they wouldn't have told me what the crust was made out of, I could actually complimented them on it. It was really good. And then they told me it was a wheat crust, which was great. But I'm thinking if we got out there, you know, if you're free, great. We'll let you know what one we're going to and what time. And you can meet us at the school, and we'll let the principal know, and they can show us what's going on, and you know, have lunch with some of the students or something like that, and see what's going on. So if you're available, great. If you're not, that's fine. But it'll be like one a month.
We get a swim up bar.
So this way we can hit the buildings.
I know we had kind of done something like that before when we were rotating our board meetings
Right.
to the different schools, so we got an opportunity to actually do like a tour. So
That was when school's out. This is when school's in, and maybe the principals can probably maybe do it like a reward thing. They can have lunch with the school board members if they want, they want to use it as a reward thing with the students or something like that.
I'm not sure they'd look at it as
Could I make a suggestion,
They know.
and I know that we have some of our members who would like to participate in that process, but are working during the day. Can we schedule some where there are daytime events and some possibly maybe like an evening event?
Yeah,
if
we can
they're
do that.
like,
It was
say,
just-
a family night that,
Right.
we could actually participate in as well. So then that way it gives an opportunity to all our board members to be able to participate at
Yep.
some point.
Sounds good.
It's not a problem.
Thank you, Ms. Funderburk. That's gonna be my
Okay.
point.
Good ideas.
Doesn't have to work
Go ahead.
every day.
All right.
Yeah, that would be difficult.
That's fine. That was just, just thrown out there so we'd see the school in action. And then naturally we go to the events at the buildings too, so. Okay. You all right, Rob?
Just
You're
fine.
You're thinking of cheese sandwich, buddy. They're good. They use wheat bread.
I'm tired.
I'm telling you, the new menu is outstanding.
Okay, next one there.
Okay, next item. Some of you may be aware that, that Michigan received a waiver on No Child Left Behind. Just a little brief background, No Child Left Behind was passed in 2003. It was set to expire in 2007. However, it's never been replaced with anything because we've got politics taking over. One of the things that's of concern to school people is that you might remember one of the provisions in No Child Left Behind was by 2014, all children must be proficient in order for a building to make adequate yearly progress. Well, as the clock is ticking and we're approaching 2014, states became concerned that that was really not a fair way to assess children, and it really was a way to make public schools look bad, which is probably pretty accurate. So many states have been applying and receiving waivers from the U.S. Department of Education. Michigan received a waiver, but what they didn't receive a waiver from is adequate yearly progress, and also, assurances that we have a system in our state for ranking schools and making sure that schools are on the track to improvement. So what I want to give you a little summary of, and I have a handout for all of you, that I think gives you a real nice, short, concise version, courtesy of our State Department of Education. The first provision of our waiver is something that you've seen before. It's called the top-to-bottom list. And the top-to-bottom list takes every public school in Michigan, with the exception of any new schools that haven't been operating and testing for at least 2 years. But anybody that's been in business longer than that and has at least 30 students. And it ranks them on a top-to-bottom list based on their overall achievement, which is simply stated their test scores, their improvement, the number of kids that are doing better each year, and also something that that you may not be familiar with, but I know we've talked about with our Board of Education, and that's the achievement gap, the gap between our highest performing subgroups and our lowest performing subgroups. It also takes into consideration for high schools what their graduation rate is. High schools that do not have a graduation rate of at least 60% are sorted out in an unfavorable manner, let me put it that way for now, on this top-to-bottom list, all right? This top-to-bottom list then is then used to categorize schools into 3 basic categories. The reward schools. The reward schools are basically the top 5% of all the schools in the state. In addition to the top 5, they include a subgroup of schools that are known as beating the odds schools. When you look at certain indicators of student performance, probably the biggest indicator is poverty rate. When you look at indicators, are those schools doing as expected, or are they beating the odds? And schools that do better than expected based on their data and statistics are classified as beating the odds schools. Those are the top 5% are what are known as the reward schools. Now, do they get a reward? Well, there's no cash incentive or anything like that, but they are categorized as the reward schools. So that's the first category. 286 schools across the state were categorized as award schools based on their 2011-2012 test data. The next category is, at the other extreme, these are called priority schools. Priority schools, conversely, are the bottom 5% on that top to bottom list. They used to be called, and I'm really glad that they changed the name. It only took them 3 years to listen, but better late than never. They used to be called the persistently low achieving, and there really wasn't a lot of truth in our case to persistently. But anyway, the priority schools are the bottom 5%. They are also including high schools that have a graduation rate that's below 60%. So those are the 2 groups that comprise that. And there are 146 schools across the state that are on that priority schools list. All right? When you are a priority school, the state gets very prescriptive as to how you have to fix your achievement problem. And it's very, very similar, if not identical, to the requirements of the SIG schools. You have 4 models in terms of what you have to do to that school. You have the turnaround model, the transformation model, both of which require you to replace the principal and a number of staff members. You have the restart model, which means you could reopen that school as a charter school. And you have the closure model, which means you can close that school, and that's a permanent closure, all right? The state then, because of that prescriptive approach, the state then gets very heavily involved in measuring that progress every year that the school is making, or lack of progress. And if the school does not make adequate progress within a limited period of time, I believe it's 3 years, that school could be closed by the state. All right, so those are the priority schools. The third category are the focus schools, and you're hearing a lot about the focus schools in the press because that's something that's totally new. Focus schools are schools that have a large difference between the top 30% of their students and the bottom 30% of their students, all right? There are 358 schools across the state that were identified as focus schools. So these schools, the reason they're called focus schools is because they need to focus on what? They need to focus on reducing that achievement gap between their top performing 30% and their bottom performing 30%. Those schools also receive a prescriptive plan from the state in the form of a district toolkit and technical assistance and support from the Department of Education. I'm happy to tell you that Romulus Community School District has no schools that are priority schools. We have no schools that are focus schools. All right. Unfortunately, we don't have any schools that are reward schools right now, but we have a goal, and that is to, hopefully get some of our schools up in that top 5%, and we're working hard on that. Those are basically the main points of my purpose in updating you on that, just to kind of keep you in the loop. If you would like more information, there is a lot more information on this. You can contact myself. Dr. Daniels has more expertise on this, but I didn't want to overload her. I know she was working on the summer Camp Learn a Lot report, but I did want to give you some type of update on this. And there's also lots of information on the Michigan Department of Education website. Those of you that frequent the website, you can look under achievement or under the Bureau of Assessment, and I know it's BAA, Assessment and Accountability, and there's all kinds of information on each of these categories.
And on the drop down, go to the accounting and accessibility to get to it.
Yes, go ahead.
One question, and that was, I know, like with the SIG grant over at the middle school, there was a process. Are grants attached to these labels, or is it just more or less just criteria now, and you just have to kind of?
Yeah, my understanding is there's some very limited additional funding for priority schools.
Only for priority.
Yeah, and it's
And it's minimal.
not even 100th of what was available under SIG.
Okay.
They basically have to do the same thing with their own money.
Okay, so right now it's more just compliance.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So we're very fortunate in that we had a middle school that was once upon a time identified. They're no longer identified, and
We
they've
got
been
the
working
money.
very hard the last 2 years, and they have one more year under that program. Any other questions?
Yes, sure. You had-
Kind of on what you just said, where are we at as far as coming off of the SIG grant with the middle school, as far as, are we making plans?
Yes. Yes, this is our third year, and we're fully funded for the third year. And what we focus on in the third year, in addition to student achievement, is sustainability. What programs can we keep on keeping on afterwards? And you've been getting email from me about some additional federal grants that we've been applying for. We've applied for the Teacher Incentive Fund. We're also going to apply for the Race to the Top 4, which is a direct U.S. Department to District grant. If we're fortunate enough to realize either one or both of those grants, we'll be able to roll out some of the programs that we really liked at the middle school to all of our schools.
Okay.
That's our plan, is to expand that if we can get the funding.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Next one.
Okay, last item on our list is the review of the field trip policy, policy 7490. This came up last spring concerning some field trips, and some of the board members had some questions about why we do what we do, and so I wanted to just, I gave you a copy of the board policy in my weekly update on Friday. And we do have a pretty good process with our field trip policy. Most field trips are approved at the level of the building principal. Where the board gets involved is in overnight, out of state, and out of country field trips. They do require board approval per our district policy. Some of you have expressed interest in having presentations of from groups that go on field trips, and we've had some. We haven't had them from every group. Tom and I had a conversation last week as we were planning the agenda, and what we thought we would do is shoot for, because you really don't have enough time in your board meetings to have a presentation at every board meeting from every single field trip that you approve. So what we're going to try to do, we'll work with our building principals and try to schedule at least 5 presentations a year for you. We think that's a doable number to at least start things off, and we'll see how that goes this year. And I'll be talking about that with the principals tomorrow at our ad staff meeting. We do have a screening process also for field trip chaperones, and that's included. And we've done a pretty good job. In fact, I've been here going on 7 years, and I think we have had one parent incident where a parent behaved inappropriately, and it was handled very well by the staff that were in charge of the field trip. It was an unfortunate occurrence, but it did happen. It was a couple of years ago. But that doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement. I had a conversation with Danielle about some suggestions that she had today, and she gave me a little homework to do, and I will be revisiting those and getting back to the board on some of those issues too, because they're good suggestions. And as we learn, we revise our policy and we move forward. We get better at what we do. But again, our goal, and it says right in the very first paragraph, field trips are encouraged when a reasonable education objective can be established. We have had some field trips that may, on the surface, seem like just fun and games or kind of filler or fluff. But our teachers are required to provide building principals with educational objectives. So even a trip to Cedar Point, which you might think, well, what's going on there? But when the physics class goes to Cedar Point, they're doing physics. When the middle school classes go to Cedar Point as a part of a rewards process, they're going as a reward for accomplishing certain things, i.e. good grades, good behavior, certain criteria that school stipulates for those kids. So it's part of it's maybe one step removed from something directly in the classroom, but it is a reward for doing well in school. So it's related, and a lot of schools have those types of things. But I know from time to time, you have questions about, well, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And I know some of you have had some very legitimate questions about transporting kids when our bus fleet is aging, and we have no money for more buses right now. And it's a very good question, and it is a board prerogative. But I will say, one of the things that is really important to our children and our families is, when you have a community with a high poverty rate, our kids don't get to places like museums and excursions unless they get there through the school. Many of our kids really don't, and that's a big part of the learning that occurs beyond the 4 walls of the classroom. And as a superintendent, I'm going to continue to advocate for every field trip that we can afford until the buses fall apart, because I just believe it's that important a component of our educational curriculum. That concludes my report, unless you have any questions.
I just wanted to say, as one of the people that's discussed transportation with our bus fleet, I don't question the value of field trips to the museums, the Art Institute, things of that nature. I do question the educational value of Cedar Point, especially as a reward. We shouldn't have to reward students for doing what they're supposed to do, given that we don't have any backup buses. My comments have been field trips that go out of the Tri-County area, you know, for these camps, for Cedar Point, things of that nature. I think we need to be looking at, and maybe it's something the district does, so we don't have an issue with Local 64. Maybe it's something we look at. We contact another school district and rent a bus for a day so that we can still provide things for our students. I'm concerned of sending our fleet 60, 80, 100 miles away from our home district and paying to tow it back.
Legitimate concern.
You know, and that's all I'm saying. And you know, I think Mr. Kudrick brought this up before, and I echo this with the Cedar Point thing. There is such wonderful software out there for physics classes. I have to believe our computers are capable of handling that software. I've seen it in other districts, seen it at museums for that matter, where the kids can design their own roller coasters. I just, belt tightening happens everywhere. But, you know, I won't pontificate anymore.
I don't know, I guess I feel a little bit different. You know, we talk about how we reward our kids, and, you know, for me, I think that, you know, if that really motivates that child to be exceptional students in the classroom of going to Cedar Point at the end of the year, then I say put it as a marker for achievement. You know, we talk about reward systems, and, you know, everybody here who's got a job, you get your paycheck at the end of the day. That's a reward because you worked hard, and so you get compensated for the time that you spent. And so, you know, I think, you know, we have to make sure that the line is drawn of what's expected, which is, you know, our students achieving well, but then also too, you know, if they do good, then a pat on the back or, you know, some sort of reward, to me, I think, you know, there's no harm in it. But I do share your concern about, you know, our fleet is getting older, and so, you know, the expense of having to, God forbid, tow a bus back from you know, Ohio, Sandusky, and so yeah, that does concern me.
And conversely, I mean, I would just offer as a debate, you know, if it's a reward for exceptional students, then our MEP scores and everything else shouldn't be an issue. If we're using that as a reward, then maybe our standards aren't really set where they need to be, if it's truly being used as a reward. Because, you know,
Well, that's something we can definitely look at, but I mean, I agree on the award. When I was in school, you know, I did good, I got home, my dad said, you did a good job. I did bad. He didn't say I did a good job, I got something else. So, you know, some of the reward systems going to Cedar Point, I don't always agree with. We can go to Turtle Creek right over here in Metro Park for a day. Take them over there, or the rec or something, but Cedar Point with the price of fuel and the cost of everything, definitely gotta look at that stuff, but anyways, any other questions on that? Okay, the next item I have is a request to speak from Tammy Garrison, Communication Expressions for Public, Band Booster fundraiser, and I forgot.
top
Nope.
switch.
Hollywood, you wanna help?
Okay. Tammy Garrison here tonight on behalf of the Band Boosters. I just want to remind everyone that the marching band will lead the Parade of Lights this Friday at 8 p.m. For the Pumpkin Festival, and also to let you all know and the community know that we're selling entertainment books for $30 this year to benefit the middle school band, the high school band, and choir. And we're going to have a booth at the Pumpkin Festival all weekend, and we're going to be selling at the school and throughout the community until September 24th. You can leave a message for me, Tammy Garrison, at the high school, or contact the band director at the high school. And that's it.
Calendars?
Oh, the Parade of Lights is 8 p.m. Friday.
Yeah. And
Uh,
Paul, do you
the-
have?
Selling
You'll
calendars.
be
We
there,
will
Paul.
be
Get with me a
selling
little bit on that.
calendars,
I'll
but
tell you
they're
about
not
the
ready yet.
tradition and what we do.
It's,
You
we
have to,
have,
this is the first year, you
We
gotta
take
bring
the-
subs.
We take the newest administrator and.
we are working
gotta-
on a band calendar, and as soon as those are ready, we'll be back to let you look them over.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
And if you
Thanks,
want, if you want to purchase those coupon books, you, and you don't, and if you don't have your $30 with you, let me know or let Anna know. We'll facilitate that process for you.
All right. We have one added thing to it, a short executive session in reference to a student hearing. So some board members won't be here at the end, so this way everybody can get it. So there'll be no action taken after that, folks. Thanks for coming out.
Just gonna share it with them tonight.
Technically, yes.
Yeah, so we need a motion to amend the agenda to add the executive session.
Mr. President, I, motion that we amend the agenda to include the executive session, right before adjournment, which would be, it would change, it would be item 9,
Yeah.
and then the adjournment would be item 10.
Support.
Motion by Danielle, Ms. Funderburg, supported by Mr. McLaughlin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, I need a roll call to go into executive
Mr.
session.
Chairman,
Yes.
I move that we go into executive session to discuss a expulsion appeal.
Okay, motion by Mr. McLaughlin, supported by Mr. Thied. Can I get roll call now, please?
Yes, you may. Mrs. Kraut?
Yes.
Mr. Thied?
Yep.
Mrs. Funderburg?
Yes.
Mrs. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Beard says yes. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Kudrick?
Yes.
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. McLaughlin.
I move we reconvene into regular session. Support.
And motion by Mr. McLaughlin, supported by Mr. Thied. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Kraut?
Yes.
Mr. Thied?
Yes.
Mrs. Funderburg?
Yes.
Mrs. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Beard, yes. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Kudrick?
Yes.
Move to adjourn.